And we are off. Jennifer Torres, how are we doing today?
Good, how are you?
I am wonderful. Actually, not gonna say that. I'm not wonderful right now. That's a canned response. I'm going through some of my own personal shit at the moment, but I'm okay. Um,
Likewise. Same sentiment. I
all
think we
right,
all,
okay, cool.
I think most of us can relate right
That's what
now.
it feels like right now. I mean, lately when when people have been asking me, I've been trying my best to just tell what's like really going on instead of being like, oh yeah, everything's fine. It's just like, I'm all right. I'm okay. Like getting there. Getting there.
Yeah.
But yeah, why don't you go ahead and explain to everybody your story, a little bit of what we're getting into today, and we'll just jump right into this shit.
Okay. So I exited a cult 4 years ago, the Cult of Jehovah's Witnesses. There's been a lot of exposure recently, which is good. Leah Remini did a special on them after her Scientology series. So if anyone hasn't seen that, it's a good in-depth coverage of everything that's going on with that cult.
Wow.
You also did a episode on our cousin cult, the Mormons. It's episode 89, if you haven't checked that out, and it's Shayna, and she covered a lot of the patriarchy that is very similar in high control religions in general. And so yeah, I was raised evangelical, and because of being indoctrinated with hellfire, I always say like Christian and evangelical witnesses because of hellfire.
Hold on.
Um,
It cut out. You said I always say Christian, and then it cut out for a quick second.
oh, I'm sorry. I always say that Christians, evangelical teenagers, are very susceptible to the cult of Jehovah's Witnesses
Ah, okay.
because of the hellfire teaching. Because Jehovah's Witnesses don't teach that when you die, you burn forever. They teach that you just go to sleep. So with that little tweak, again, Christians and evangelical teens are very susceptible to that cult of Jehovah's Witnesses. That's what kind of hooked me, in addition to the fact that I was really vulnerable. I was pregnant at 18. So of course the fear of hellfire was very prominent in my psyche at the time. And because they're a cult, they practice love bombing. So when you're vulnerable, all of a sudden you have this community. And again, especially if you're coming from a religious background, all that is very similar. There's just a few tweaks. So I always say it's boiled like a frog. Like there's some things about the doctrine that are super dangerous, which is what I want to touch on in this episode. I called them a death cult because of their blood doctrine and because of the suicides that happen because of shunning. And if you layer shunning onto the fact that you think you're just going to sleep, it's very dangerous.
Oh shit.
It's
Yeah.
very dangerous. So you're cutting people off from their entire community and their entire family if they're stop falling in line. And then in their psyche is like, well, it's just a relief. It's just sleep. And, none of us knows what happens after death, but this combination makes it the suicide rate very, very high for cults. I would include Mormons in that as well. I'm not sure what their afterlife belief is, but the fact that you're being shunned when you either, fall out of line or you just stop agreeing to the doctrine, you lose everything. So those are some of the things that I kind of wanted to bring awareness to, in addition to they have a child abuse problem There's a whole database of unreported sex offenders that the courts have revealed, but they haven't, the government hasn't forced them to release it. So it's a public safety issue because, you know, you're not involved in the Jehovah's Witness cult, but they knock on your door and they set up their little carts near schools. So it is an issue for the public. And I don't think the public really understands that portion of it. So
Nope.
So yeah, there's just a lot of issues. There's shunning, the blood transfusion doctrine, which they refuse blood, causes deaths, and then the child abuse problem. So there's a lot.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are going to get into all of it. But just, I'm curious. So you joined at age 18.
I started studying, so that's how they start with you. They'll just, you know, present like, well, let's just look into the Bible. And because I did have questions, you know, as a teenager, I was not sure if this religion that I grew up in made sense, especially with the hellfire, like I said. So
Yeah.
they'll come to your door and kind of just like, let's just talk about this, you know, let's just talk about these scriptures. And so I started studying when I was pregnant at that time with them. And then it was kind of a slow progression, you know. Anyone who's a Jehovah's Witness will probably tell you if they were if they weren't born in, if they were converted, they will tell you when they started studying, they said, you know, I said, yeah, I'll study, but I'll never go door to door, or I'll study, but I'll never get baptized. Well, a lot of times,
Step
you know,
by step is just
it's
a
just a
little bit at a
step.
time until you're just like, whoa, what the fuck just happened?
Right. And then all of a sudden you have community too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I said, they employ love bombing. So there's a lot of factors that do go into it. I mean, the age of the internet has halted their recruiting because you could just Google and go down a rabbit hole and realize that that's not the place to be. But, you know, I got converted in the 90s, so didn't really have that.
Gotcha. What sparked your curiosity in the first place of even wanting to pursue or learn about a different route?
Because I was still indoctrinated, and I still felt that there was a higher power that I should be serving in some respects. Also because I was pregnant, and I started to think like, yeah, what am I going to teach my daughter? Like I felt at a loss in a lot of ways just because I was so young, and that was one thing that I felt like, well, maybe, you know, this just seemed right at the time.
Okay. Indoctrinated in which religion again?
Evangelical.
That's okay.
Christian, yeah. So hellfire and all that.
Hellfire and brimstone. All
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was raised Christian, but not like it was hellfire and brimstone type stuff, but not that intense, I guess you could say. But that's still like the sentiment that is with it. It's just like, hey, you know, do this way or spend an eternity on fire. And it's just like that kind of message, you know, just what you're talking about with, you know, teaching to younger people, teaching to younger kids. That's a pretty intense message when you don't want to spend eternity on fire.
Yes, exactly. And I used to go to like youth groups, and they would, you know, it'd be fun and whatever. And at the end of the night, they'd be like, well, now remember, if you die on the way home, where's your soul going? Like that was a
Good
common,
Lord.
very common thing. Like, are you going to come to Jesus tonight? Because,
Yo.
and as a teenager, you're doing all kinds of stuff. I was listening to Prince, Darling Nikki too much. Like, I'm thinking, yeah, I'm going to burn. Like even the littlest things, like, especially with, like I said, evangelicals, the littlest thing, music, you're messing around, you're doing all kinds of stuff. So yeah, the fear mongering is big, and you're indoctrinated since you're a little child. So
Yeah.
it just keeps building and building.
Yeah, because if you're in that type of mindset for like decades, it isn't even a thought of like, is this right? Is this wrong? Like, what is this doing to me? What is this doing to other people? Yeah, back when I was living in Ohio, I had a buddy that was putting on this like church Halloween thing, and no idea what exactly what specific religion it was, but it was like, hey, come see this play, this Halloween play type thing. And oh, you still there? There you go. And I went there with a friend, and we watched this thing, and it's just like, oh wow, it's like one of those like all these popular people that die and then go to hell, type thing. And it was at one point they had like the John Lennon character that was doing his thing, and then all of a sudden it was just like the next scene is just like John Lennon's in hell, and one of the reason it sparked that thought is because as me and my friend were leaving, because we were like, fuck this is odd, and I don't want to be here anymore, because after the play the pastor went up there and just basically started just yelling at everybody. And it was one of those things where he's like, if you're on the way home tonight and that person falls asleep at the wheel and you're not paying attention, where are you gonna go? And like that type of thing, you're just like, dude.
Exactly. That was my childhood.
Sorry if I brought up anything. But yeah, that shit,
Yeah.
it's scary.
Yeah. And, a lot of, like you said, you were brought up with not that heavy of a push to the fear, the fear aspect. Like a lot of Christians do, let's just focus on the good and the love. But, it's there. It's in the Bible, like it's there. So no matter how much some of the little offshoots want to pretend it's not there, it is there.
Well, so once you started to learn about Jehovah's Witness, what kept you going down that path?
Well, okay, because it's a cult, they have it very down packed. It's a worldwide cult, and it's super organized. So one of the things that they do is keep you so busy that you don't have time to think. We have 5 meetings, which was, 3 times a week you would go to these meetings. We had door knocking, which we had a quota. If you fell below 10 hours a month, then you're gonna get a visit. And and it's peer pressure, like everyone's checking on you. If you're missing meetings, if you're missing what they call service door knocking. So it's a lot of pressure to keep on that hamster wheel. And that hamster wheel, besides your family obligations, your work obligations, your own taking care of yourself obligations, keeps your mind off of the cognitive dissonance that you're having, because you are having cognitive dissonance throughout. There's definitely things throughout the years that I was like, something's wrong. But it's like the game of Jenga. If you ever played the game of Jenga, so you'll have something that's like, this doesn't feel right, and that piece comes out, but the whole thing doesn't fall down. And that's how it is kind of over the years, obviously not everyone comes out, but for the people that have come out, that's how we all describe it. Like one day the last piece comes out and everything comes down. but throughout the years, like I said, you're so busy. They follow, there's a model for cults. It's called the BITE model: behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotion control. So it's the BITE model. So,
Oh
you
my.
know, you're told over and over again, like, don't look at outside sources because Satan, is twisting things. So between being so busy and like literally not looking at outside sources, it's very hard for them to come out mentally, for me, I had a lot of cognitive dissonance about certain things. One of them was how they handled child abuse, but some of the things that I witnessed and even our family had seen, we thought that it was just the congregation that we're in. So like I said, it's a worldwide organization, but you have these little congregations in little pockets. And so we thought, well, we were even told these elders just mishandled things, but it will get handled, right? And you just believe that. And you believe that, like, Jehovah, who that's how they refer to God, will, even if it's not taken care of instantaneously, ultimately it will get taken care of.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, but for me, I back in late 2016, I was just driving home and I heard on NPR that Jehovah's Witnesses have this database of unreported sex offenders. And I was like, record scratch, like, what? So, because I started thinking about things that I knew about, right? I started thinking like, oh my gosh, this is worldwide, like this is bigger than what I was told or I believed. So I went home and I broke that information control rule and I just started Googling and I went down the rabbit hole. I spent like a good 3 months up all night on different sites and just uncovering everything, not only uncovering the sex abuse problem, but just the doctrine, just undoing everything. Because once you start, I don't know if you've ever been down a rabbit hole, but once you start,
you're like, what is it? I don't know what I believe anymore. Yeah,
exactly.
Wow. Oh my God. So let me ask you, when you were actually going out there and like reading this stuff, did it feel like you were doing something wrong?
At first it did. But then as I realized how big and how harmful and how terrible it is that they're literally protecting pedophiles, it was very soon on that I was like, oh my gosh, this is awful. And like I said, I had undone a lot of the doctrine like really fast because I think of the years of cognitive dissonance, that things didn't make sense. Like, as I read things, it just all unraveled really quickly. So I didn't, early on, I didn't feel bad about unraveling everything. I even started speaking up, which is like a no.
Right.
So so everything kind of fell apart for me really quickly.
So
as far as my community, and
you what?
as far as like the community, because
Oh.
I did start speaking up, and I realized that no matter what I was gonna lose, I had to stand on the right side of this.
Yeah. So how long from 18 to what age were you in this environment?
So the end of 2016 is when that happened. I was 40. Oh my gosh. 43. I can't keep track of time or my age anymore. We don't celebrate birthdays, so it's very hard to keep track of my age.
Yeah. Well, still, I mean, that's 20 plus years of
Oh yeah, yeah. I raised my
wow,
kids in it, which,
wow.
thankfully I was able to. My daughter was waking up at the same time. Just ironically, we were both like uncovering things at the same time and not really expressing that in the beginning to each other because we were afraid. I was definitely afraid, like I indoctrinated her. She could turn around and shun me. It's happened. It happens. Like if you
Uh,
watch the Leah Remini show, there's a mom on there begging her child to please reach out, and that could have been me because I indoctrinated my kids. But thankfully, didn't happen. But it happens too much.
yeah. What were some of the things that you had noticed that clicked for you when you had heard that thing on the radio, or that had stood out that you're just that got brought back up when you were diving into some of this stuff and going down the rabbit hole?
Um, oh, there's so much. Well, one of the things, so my dad, him being evangelical, we were never, we're in different religions, but he passed. And when he passed away, I remember all my friends saying, well, it's a good thing he died now because in the Jehovah's Witness doctrine, um, if you're alive at Armageddon, um, it's kind of like a final death. Like you don't really get a chance to be resurrected. So they were telling me it's a good thing that my dad died now. And I was like, wait a minute. And even my son was, I think he was like 14, and he's never believed it. He just never told me. So he would always just ask me questions like, Mom, does that even make sense? Like, his grandpa was a good man. Like that he was trying to follow God. Like, how does that even make sense that he wouldn't have a chance for everlasting life because of the timing of his death?
Right.
And, you know, that really hit me, but I just kind of put it in a drawer because it was in the middle of me grieving, for one.
Oh shit.
I
Yeah.
just kind of like put it away, and yeah, that's one of the things you do is like as things come up, you just, if you're not going to dive in, also knowing that like diving in means a massive loss, you could lose your whole family, you just don't do it. You just kind of just like, let's just file that away, keep going. keep Get back on the hamster wheel, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's like your entire support system is set up, and I mean, from what you're talking about with the cult mentality and what happens with it is, you get these environments where if if you choose to go a different route, if you choose to leave, like literally every single bit of support that you have built over all these years is just instantly gone, and you probably haven't had the opportunity or been allowed to hang out with people that are outside of the people that you're supposed to hang out with.
Exactly.
And it's it's a fucked up situation because it keeps people in it, because of that very thing. It's just what you just talked about. It's like, ooh, like, oh no, that doesn't make sense, but I don't want to go down that right now. Like, I don't want, like, I'm not in a place where I can sit down and actually try to figure this out.
Exactly. And even the people that do, there's a whole XJW Reddit full of, probably more than half of the people on there are in the closet awake because, yeah, they've dismantled it all, but they're not in a position to lose their family. Some of them will lose livelihoods because there's a lot of, people in those kind of cultures, employ each other. And I mean, it's so layered. So yeah, there's people fully awake that can't really live the way that they want to live. They have to be in the closet and they have to just go along because the price is so high.
Yeah. Well, um, I was hearing this right when you were saying love bombing, right? Um,
Mhm.
I feel like I have a little bit of an idea what that might be, but I'm curious as to what that is and how it plays into all this. Could you explain some of that?
Well, just so they focus on people who are vulnerable, and at the time I was vulnerable, um, and they get to know you. So I don't know if you've ever engaged with them at the door, but like one of the things that they're trained to do, one of our meetings was like training of how to talk to people. So yeah, they'll just like get to know you, get to know what your unmet needs are, get to know what your family structure is, and they just like start friendships with you, and then they start inviting you to not just meetings, but like if you're going to meetings, they'll just ramp it up, and they are lovely. Most of them are lovely people. I will say there's plenty of sociopaths in there, and there's plenty of pedophiles in there that know why they're in there. They're in there because they know they'll be protected. So there's a little bit of a mixed bag, but for the most part, they're genuine, loving, and brainwashed. And so, they're just befriending you. And
Yeah.
a lot of people they go through times in their lives where they need that. Like one of the things that would come up in those meetings was like, people's circumstances change. So just keep going, because if they are, maybe they're okay now and everything's hunky-dory now, but at some point, that person may go through something that they need. Um, it's so predatory. I mean, just even repeating it sounds awful, but literally that's what they'll do. They'll like take a finger on the pulse of people they visited over and over that are nice to them and see like, oh, how's your life going? Oh, you've had a major loss. Well, here's a scripture that shows you're going to see your loved one again in paradise. And then, they build on that, and they build on a friendship. Very predatory. And
No.
it's meant to recruit vulnerable people.
Oh my God. Okay. So at this job that I worked at for a little while when I moved out here to San Diego, one of the guys that I met there was a converted Jehovah's Witness, and I I mean nice dude. Um, we got into talking about like why he converted in the first place and why it was even a thing, and you saying they prey on vulnerable people. So this guy he had just I think he was in a ruined relationship. He was addicted to blow, and he had got to the point where he had like pretty much sold everything in his place. The only thing that was left was like a TV and like something else, and that was it in his entire spot. So he was at the lowest place in his life and gets a knock on his door.
Yep.
And that type of love
Mm-hmm.
at that moment got him.
Yeah. And
And
it's community, and it's also, they're very smart, like I said, very smart and very organized. The systems will help you get off drugs, and like it's because they'll use universal truths.
yeah,
I mean, all religion does, right? There's some truth
of
in
course.
it.
And
And
I'm
so these things help people, like they really do.
yeah, and I'm sure that
Work.
there are a lot of people that actually I have no idea, but I would like to think that there are going to be a decent amount of people in each religion or each one of these things that are in it for good reasons
Yeah.
and aren't the ones perpetuating these things. Um, but to not be able to talk about this shit is psycho.
Okay. Yeah.
Because you can't just be happy-go-lucky all the time and talk around the fact that people are getting hurt in a lot of different ways, physically and mentally. And it's not right. It's not right at all.
Yeah. And I just think, like I was saying before, the public at large, because we're such a small group, I mean, we're smaller than the Mormons. We're like not a blip of anything on anybody's radar. But if you look at Jonestown, and if people perceive the bodies, you visualize the bodies in your mind, that is happening times 1,000, but like one by one and unreported because of the blood doctrine, and couple that with suicide numbers. And but nobody, like, there's no real tangible numbers, but if you were an XJW, you know you know the bodies pile up every year, and it's just chilling. No one knows that about them outside, like literally. Nobody
Right.
knows.
Yeah, I would have never up until now even thought about that.
Yeah. So
What?
there's a scripture in the Bible that talks about keep abstaining from blood, and they use that scripture to completely brainwash people to not take blood transfusions if they need them. And then, they'll tell you like, oh, even bloodless surgeries have been very successful and they're much more healthy, which can be true, but that should be up to your doctor, not your religion.
Oh, so the blood doctrine is saying you're not allowed to have a transfusion.
Correct. And
Oh,
that if you do, you're not going to be resurrected. And you also, if you survive, you will have consequences now because we'll rip your family away.
so
It's
you
very
get
layered.
a crazy car accident, and the only way to save you is a blood transfusion. You either have to die, and they'll be like, well, at least he was dead before the rapture or whatever. And if you don't, you could potentially lose your entire support system and family.
Correct. And
That
most Jehovah's Witnesses, they do, you're brainwashed to think this life is temporary, this life is just the blip, and what we're working towards is forever. So whatever happens in this temporary life, the scale in your mind, it's like, yeah, I want to live forever
it's
on paradise.
almost romanticizing the afterlife.
Yeah. And so they don't even have to put that much pressure on you if you're brainwashed enough. But they also do put pressure on you. Like, as soon as you're in the hospital, they have a thing called the hospital liaison committee that will go into these hospitals, and it'll be like 3 elders, and literally they're just re-brainwashing you to, like, stay strong. And then the doctors and nurses, like, I think they understand what's happening, but they also can't really do anything about it. It's a very crazy situation. It's very crazy.
So what?
And people die in just giving birth. Sometimes the court system will step in if it's a minor, because they'll even do that for their children. They'll refuse blood for their children.
It's, ah, it's so bothersome. Like, something that's been on my mind quite a bit lately is just a- thinking about a lot of the systems that we have in place in society, and there's just a level of fakeness that has got us to a place of delirium, I feel like. And religion is one of those staples in society where I feel like we're so off our rockers with being able to come to terms with reality. Like, cool, believe whatever the hell you want. Like, okay, yeah, I don't care what you believe, but if your belief is stopping you from being able to see stuff that is negatively impacting and harming other individuals, that's when your belief is fucked. So
Exactly.
like, this is, it's looking at that Jenga scenario that you're talking about. Like, what the fuck is what is it gonna take for the system to fall?
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, when we had our talk before this, I was lately I've been really connecting like other institutions, like the military, the law enforcement, like in my mind, they're all cults, and it's all upheld by perceived power. And
Yes.
I asked you if you had watched the Stanford, um, where my mind is going blank. The
Prison,
Stanford experiment.
yeah, this
Um,
was an experiment that, whoo, buddy.
that is really that really connects everything. If I encourage everyone to watch it, because you can apply that to cults, you can apply that to law enforcement, to the military, to a lot of different organizations that have these structures of perceived power,
Yeah.
especially in religion. It's like, that's not, these people don't have power over you. I mean, but then they do use tools that, you know, in reality you are going to suffer if you're not following. Like I said, they have your family, they have your community,
Yeah.
but it's all, and so I'm like starting to connect, even like I said, law enforcement who are abusing their power, but it's upheld by, I don't know, it's just like it's all perceived power. And like once um I was watching a video on Twitter, and it was a woman who was trying to talk some sense into the law enforcement who were in riot gear, and there's just a peaceful protest, and you literally see the cognitive dissonance in their face, that they know they're in a fucked up system, but it's the same thing. It's like, what now? How do we dismantle this? How do we get out now? It's like your livelihood, like, they know they're doing wrong. Like, not all of them, like some of them
Some of them.
are fine with being a sociopath, whatever. But I know that there has to be some, just like how I was, like when I realized I'm in a system that's so abusive, I know that there has to be people like that in there. It's like they have to be having the cognitive dissonance now.
Yeah.
This is like an unnatural level of abuse.
Yeah. And I feel like it's come to a head, and that's what we're seeing at this moment in the in the world, in the US, with all the protests and everything that are going on. And I feel like a lot more people are starting to wake up to some of this stuff, but that doesn't mean anything has changed. It just means that people are starting to wake up, because man, there's this weird sort of feeling when you just want to take down all these walls that you've built with these ideas about how things are supposed to be, and just be like, I see you. Like, I get it. I know you want to do the right thing. You just don't know how. You're a little lost at the moment. But it's just these perceived barriers that just stop us from being able to tap into our humanity. It's
Exactly.
powerful.
It really
Systems
is.
are fucking powerful. So it's man, I think we have to talk about how fucked up it is to shake it enough for it to topple.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you think about it, it's like, you go into the workforce. What are the things we can't talk about? Religion, politics. Like, we're not allowed to talk about things that are embedded in society. Why? Is it because we might get to a place where we start to understand each other a little bit more, and we start to understand that these systems that are in place are not working for us? It's working for people that want this power, that want this perceived authority over, like, everybody else. I want to tell you what to do and you do it. Like, is that really what we're in?
Yeah.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah. And asking each other questions, because honestly, we all have some level of brainwashing.
Yeah.
And, I mean, like you said, talking about it, dismantling it by asking the hard questions, because you gotta sit with those questions. No matter how many years I pushed them away, like those were the seeds that helped the last piece.
Yeah.
It's like you may not wake someone up instantaneously. That's not really how it works. But if we can, I don't know, like I think we're talking at each other a lot, and like
Ah,
maybe just asking questions so that you can plant that, like, does that make sense?
yes.
Like instead of having everyone's just like talking at each other, and they're only like quiet enough to formulate their next response, and nothing is really, it doesn't feel like things are getting through.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
What was
yeah.
what was the thing about the Stanford prison experiment that stood out the most to you?
There's a lot of things. Most,
It
most,
is deep.
it was so deep. It's so deep and crazy. And when you realize it was only 6 days, when you realize the, like, I said I was boiled like a frog over some years, like I didn't get baptized till like 4 years after studying. So like when you realize this was 6 days and the level of abuse that they got to in 6 days, like chilling. That is so chilling with regards to the human psyche and our shadow selves.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to work on their shadow because so chilling. But yeah, so the fact that it was so short, that most participants chose to be a prisoner, but the ones that were in power was all because of a coin flip. And then it's like all of a sudden, they chose to be a prisoner because a lot of them said like, oh, I wouldn't even want to do that. Like, that's not even in my personality. But then all of a sudden, because someone gave you that perceived power, in 6 days, you're abusing it on such a level that's like mind-blowing. You said you'd rather be a prisoner. I just can't even, like, I haven't read the whole study. I've only watched the thing, but it's like it's very hard to wrap my mind around it. But again, you can see why this is a mirror for our society.
It is, because this is perceived power again. Like, and for people that have never heard of this, the Stanford prison experiment was this group of students that they turned this one hall at Stanford into a fake jail, where they had, at the flip of a coin, some students ended up playing the role of the prisoners, some students played the role of the guards, and they were to pretend that it was an actual prison setting, and they had to go through, it was like their time to eat, their time to whatever, get exercise, and it just shows how quickly it just descends in anarchy with the power struggle. Not much direction was given to the students, on
Right.
this. So it's like, you extrapolate that out, so you got these young kids that are given power, and you also look at these other situations in society where we thrust a lot of younger people into shitty situations. Think of like the military,
Exactly. Yeah.
and then it's just like you get indoctrinated at a young age that this is how it works. This is what you do, and without even realizing it, because of what other people are doing around you, you end up following suit.
And it's the same thing with religion as it is with the military. Like, you really think you truly sign those papers because it's for the greater good, or
Yeah.
even for your own personal greater good, like education, whatever. But you also believe that you are going to be doing something for the better of humanity, or better of America, whatever. Like, but that is a perception that you have going in. So that adds to the brainwashing, because right up front you're brainwashed before you even join. You're brainwashed.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, let's just add to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Man, it's
and I think the other thing was that I noticed that was very parallel was the culture cues. You know, they gave them different uniforms. They stripped them. They emasculated them. The
referred to
prisoners,
them as their number instead of their name, so you take away identity.
which
Yeah.
is literally what happens in there. We even say, or they say, you know, you're putting on a new personality, because that's in the Bible. Put on the new personalities. That's reinforced over and over again. Your new personality, your new personality. As far as uniforms are concerned, like we very much had kind of like unspoken rules, I guess, and it just reinforces, you know, it's reinforced by peer pressure and just like, this is what we do here, this is how we look here. The men are emasculated, they're not allowed to have beards, which is an arbitrary rule. Like
Yeah.
Jesus had a beard, I don't know, it just doesn't, it's just some arbitrary rule, right? Like they'll have plays where the men are reenacting, you know, the biblical stuff, and they're like pasting beards on, like, because they're not allowed to wear beard. But that's one of those things that happened in the Stanford experiment. You're like, strip them, you know, it's just, it's wild when you start thinking about the psychology and how, like I said, they just have every box checked psychology wise. Like they know what they're doing. Scientology, Mormonism, Jehovah's Witnesses, these very high control groups know the psychology, and they turn it on high.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, the thing one of the things that jumped out to me on that the Stanford prison experiment was the one kid that was, or the actor that was playing the one of the guards. You know, he was fascinated at what he was allowed to do, and he wanted to push the envelope, he wanted to raise the bar, and he was just like, and I was just surprised nobody stopped me. And it's like, oh fuck, put that out to a lot of these horrible situations where you have people that are in power that are doing really fucked up things, but nobody else is stopping them because of that power.
Exactly. That's why you'll get like, so with the child abuse thing, the Jehovah's Witnesses, I think, you know, Shaina talked about how it works in the patriarchy where if you do something wrong, you have to meet with elders. And so there's these, like, there'll be a group of elders that you meet with. So whether you cheat on your husband or whether you're a sex offender, you're going to meet with these elders. And these group of elders will sit and, like, in the child abuse situation, you know, they know what happened. They won't report it to police. They'll take care of it internally. And then, like I said, like I was talking about the cognitive dissonance, there has to be men that are like this, you know, that have their own families that are like this, the way we're dealing with this isn't right, but they won't say anything. They won't call the police. Like they're just sticking to the line because of what? Like
Brainwashing.
it's
The
crazy.
shit is very, very, very powerful.
It's very powerful. And, you know, yeah, it is brainwashing. I keep reinforcing that. Yeah, they do have your family holding over your head too. So like which in the Stanford experiment, you know, they were putting these kids in the hole. So they're, you know, the punishment is there, the brainwashing is there. That's a lot of pressure that just makes your brain just like numb out.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're talking about like the whole child abuse thing, it's like, instead of this actually being reported to the authorities, it's being handled internally by the church. And that is is how it's happened.
Yeah.
Oh man. So
And
yeah.
those same people that they know are sex offenders will be out on Saturday morning when Corona is over, knocking on doors,
Fuck.
writing notes about your home, writing if you do they have a dog, is it a single mom, do they have kids, like these are things I did because we're trying to connect with you and we're trying to build a relationship, and so are the pedophiles.
Oh my God. Okay. I hate talking about this, but it does need to be talked about. So what's going on with this database that's got all these offenders?
So it was revealed in 2 San Diego civil cases that two men who were abused by a pedophile, who the pedophile has since fled to Mexico because he was never reported. So he was, there's plenty of those. There's a lot of, there's a pedophile that's on America's Most Wanted list that was a Jehovah's Witness, and he's at large because it wasn't reported. So in these 2 San Diego cases, the lawyer discovered that they keep so much detailed records internally that they actually have a database. And the courts tried to force them to release the database. They were fined $4,000 a day. Eventually, both of those cases settled, which closed the whole thing off. So since then, the California Attorney General has asked for reports of clergy abuse, and plenty of us have sent, hey, look at these 2 San Diego cases. There's a database there that's ripe for, discovery. Let's get that. And nothing has happened so far. I don't know why.
Who's it controlled by? Is it controlled by witnesses?
Jehovah's Witnesses, which is their corporation is called the Watchtower. So Watchtower Corporation.
So they're
has this database
of all these crimes, basically.
Yes, they're keeping a record of it. Mm-hmm. Because they'll disfellowship the person in some cases, not all. And they keep record. They kept records on all of their members, and so that's just part of the record keeping. Like, I mean, if I cheated on my husband, that would be kept in a record. But it's the same for pedophiles, like I was saying. Like it's all recorded. So yeah, in Australia, the Australian Royal Commission did a investigation on a lot of organizations, not just the Jehovah's Witnesses, and found that the Jehovah's Witnesses had not reported 1,006 cases. But I mean, that's a different country, different rules, and I'm not sure how they're going to handle the database situation over there, but they are at least looking at their tax exempt status there because they're mishandling sex abuse issues worldwide. So Australia is finally at least doing something. I'm not sure when America is going to get on board, but part of me feels like it's because America has a lot of sex trafficking problems. I mean, I don't know if you ever watched the movie Spotlight about the Catholic Church. The police were involved. That was very clear. The police were involved. And so, but all these years later and nothing, so I think my theory, not to get too crazy conspiracy on you, but my theory really is that there's so many levels of this sex trafficking problem that every level is protecting each other, whether it's religious and the religions are involved. I mean, there's a whole sex ring that was found out in the Jehovah's Witness in Montana. And it's like, I don't understand, there's a lot of civil cases that are hitting them in the pocketbook, but this has to go beyond civil cases at this point because it is a public safety issue. And those poor kids that are being raised in that call are not protected.
Yep.
It's such a huge problem. And I've tried to, went through an activism wave and I just got burnt out. And it's kind of coming up again for me just because of everything that's coming up in the world with sex trafficking and all these problems and the police and just like everything. Like, I just feel like it's time to be vocal again.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming.
Man, I don't think that's outside of the realm of very easily seen potential of that being the case. Because one of the main guys that has dirt on a lot of powerful people accidentally hung himself. Epstein's, that
Exactly.
that
I believe it's all connected somehow. I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
like that piece of shit has ties with the current administration, the former administration, and former administrations. It's like, if a known pedophile who is not being made to stay in jail because you're getting out 6 out of the 7 days out of the week, and you're schmoozing with all these high profile individuals that have a lot of pull on these systems that govern people, that's the only explanation to me why this isn't a national like emergency. Like that like we're not putting more of this effort into emergencies around like human beings. And it comes back, and I think this is where part of my, like, outside of this, the personal stuff that I've got going on in my life, it's heavy looking at all these systems that are in place. Because you do look at them and you go, why the fuck are you guys focused on this when all these people over here this is happening with them? And then you see these powerful individuals tied to these slimy motherfuckers, and you're just like, it's starting to look pretty blatant at this point, and it's been pretty blatant for a while, but I feel like it's just rising up now because of social media, and people are fucking tired of all the fakeness and the fact that all these organizations are being protected by the systems that are in place. That it's just like, we got to call it out. We got to keep calling it out. We got to continue to call it out, because there are some very, very, very powerful people that need to be flushed out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, and it goes back a little bit to like, okay, what can't we talk about? Like, what are the taboo topics? Pretty much every fucking thing we've been talking about so far, and we're not allowed to talk about these things in the places where they're happening, because they're happening, and it makes people uncomfortable.
Right.
It's like, shit. So you don't have any hard evidence. Oh, you're just trying to get people in trouble. You're trying to cancel people. And it's like, no, we're just looking for the fucking truth here.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things that Jehovah's Witnesses do to protect what's going on now within their organization, again, I mentioned information control, but so those of us who have spoken out and got kicked out, I actually formally disassociated myself before they could kick me out, because I wanted to spread the word of what I found before they could silence me. So once they kick you out, no one's going to talk to you. Everyone's going to block you on social media. You're dead. You're dead. So what I did was blasted my message before anyone knew that they were going to kick me. I kind of just checkmated them.
Yeah.
Because I just had to. They were going to make up rumors that I had cheated on my husband instead of, no, there's a child abuse problem, actually. So that's one of the things that they do, is they silence you if you're going to call it out. But they also, if you're an apostate like me, they all call apostates like mentally diseased and like controlled by Satan. So that's another tactic to keep their members away from this information, away from what's actually happening in their organizations. Like, oh, those apostate lies, those mentally diseased apostates that are controlled by the demons and Satan now, like they're kicked out. Like, they don't know what they're talking about. Like, they just want to, take us down for following God. Like that's literally what, people who shun me think about me. So they're not going to listen to anything I have to say.
Yeah.
But I put the seed out there. I mean, again, I know everyone has their own Jenga game in this life, so we'll see.
That's it's probably like it's best that you did it that way, like, because what they would do, if you control the narrative around it and you're just like, oh, we're kicking her out because she's going to say some real shit, but we're going to tarnish her name by saying she did this and she said that and this is how she's living her life, and everybody just like go against her, and it's like all of a sudden this organization that is so built out of love and light and is just so welcoming to everybody, if you bring up anything negative, it's like,
especially as a woman, oh my gosh.
oh, yeah, that was one
women are to be silent.
in the conversation with Shauna about yeah, and it's is it I'm assuming it's, by your reaction, is pretty similar with Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very, very, we're very much alike in that way. Women are not to be listened to in any like formative, like it's just, the men are in control, and that's that.
these pedophiles that are out there that are involved, like, how are they being given the opportunity to be some of the lowest levels of human beings on the face of the earth?
I'm sorry, I missed. Was that a question?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just
say that again.
Wondering how that these piece of shit individuals who prey on kids are being given the opportunity to actually do that. Like, is it like a retreat type thing? Is it like they're going to their homes? Like, how is this type of shit?
Sometimes it's their parents or their family members. But then when the child talks about it, goes to the elders, like, again, it's handled internally. Sometimes it's just family, friends, relationships, but it also could be because, of the power structure. There's plenty of elders that are abusers. And there's a level of trust within the community that's, happens in those.
Oh, you're one of us. Here, just take the child.
Yeah, exactly. And that, they going door to door. Some of the cases that's when it's happened. Like, oh, elder so and so is going with, this teenage girl door to door, but then after service. And it can happen in all different ways. It's such a closed community. Again, a lot of it is just family issues. Some, one of the things that Jehovah's Witnesses do is they recruit in prisons, which is like, I think a lot of religions do that. Like, let's go to the prisons and preach, but then those people come out and then go into the organization realizing that they're going to be protected in there. So whatever happens, like, they may get kicked out. Like I said, in some cases, if there's enough evidence, that's a whole other thing. They have this 2-witness rule that, like, unless there's 2 witnesses to a crime, it didn't happen, or like nothing's going to happen. And that's because it's in the Bible. Some screwed up, like, I don't even know where it is in the Bible at this point, but like, there's something about 2 witnesses to a crime in the Bible. So they use that. So if there's like 2 people that come and say, yes, this happened, then potentially that person will get kicked out of the organization. That doesn't mean they can't come back in 6 months when they're repentant enough. So yeah, that they flourish in there. Like, some of them get kicked out, come back, but when they come back, none of the congregants are told that they were kicked out because they abused children. So they'll move to another congregation. Nobody knows their history.
But they'll make up some shit about a woman like yourself who is leaving on her own accord because she has seen the light, she has seen the truth, and they'll protect the pedophile.
Yeah. Well, we have to forgive them because they're repentant.
Yeah, fuck forgiving you for any of the things that you might have realized, you know?
Yeah.
God. Ugh.
It's crazy. It's awful. It's
How long have you been free of that situation?
4 years. Seems like forever, but it hasn't been that long.
Yeah. Well, how long did it I'm sure there's going to be more stuff, you know, throughout your future that come up that you realize and whatnot. But how long did it take you to transition out of like some of the brainwashing that had happened for you?
I think a good 2 years. I mean, things come up here and there even now. It's like an onion, I feel like. You just keep peeling and peeling and realizing like, oh, that behavior I think is connected to to, you know, my brainwashing. There's all these little nuances of the culture, and yeah, it just sometimes I'm like, wow, is this ever gonna end? Like, yeah, I'm not brainwashed to the doctrine. That kind of fell apart quickly. But again, it's like there's a lot of little things that you kind of carry over. They're very nuanced. And one day you just realize like, I think I'm doing that because because of the residual, you know.
Oh man. Has how has the relationship been? Have you had any sort of relationship, like family or friends, that got cut off but has now come back?
I've had a few people message me in private that they know what I'm saying is true and they've gone down the rabbit hole, but they can't say anything.
Ah.
So there's a couple of those. And then there's a couple people that have come out since, fully out and are free. But yeah, not as many as I hope for, but hopefully over time it'll happen. I think there might be even a few that haven't reached out to me. But yeah, just little by little, I guess. I mean, again, most of the time it's something that happens in your own life that like gives you the courage to actually go down those rabbit holes and face it.
Yeah.
So that's different for all people. It's funny because that's how we recruited people. Like, oh, things will change and might change in their life and they might see things different. Well, it's kind of the same on this side, you know. Sometimes things need to happen in their personal life in order to connect it. Or like a lot of times people are kicked out for adultery or for drinking too much or whatever that is. And being kicked out helps them realize and have courage to like dig a little deeper. So that happens too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure if you get kicked out for drinking and then have noticed like some of the other shit that happens there, you're just like, hold up, like,
yeah,
wait
exactly.
if this is really why I'm getting kicked out and not supported, but you'll support. Okay, man.
Yeah,
it's just I can't get that thought out of my head that a pedophile could be going door to door.
Lots of them are.
That's
They set up their carts near the school too. Yeah.
ugh. That That is gross. That
Mhm.
is just beyond fucked up. Oh man. And are they tasked with recruiting younger kids by the
Oh,
school?
oh, sure, yeah. Oh, high school students, they love them because, again, like, especially if you're raised with some indoctrination that, like, you're confused. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They'll talk to teenagers and try to recruit them. I know a few teenagers that came in by themselves and their parents, just kind of didn't really realize. But again, it's like there's some moral structure. So, you know, yeah, when I was in, there was a few teenagers that were recruited just on their own. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Mm. How do we fix it?
I don't know. I just keep speaking up, I guess. I keep speaking up and knocking on the attorney general's door, like, hello, it's real easy, just go get that database
All
and
right.
let's
Right.
tax this organization, let's hit them in the pocket. Like, I think there's a lot of civil suits going on, which helps, but let's take their tax exemption away. Yeah, there's things that can be done at the government level, but they're just not listening
Right.
right
And that,
now.
that's what's crazy to me about this. It's like if the database exists, we
Hmm.
know it exists, yet nobody's going to go even the claims alone uh,
Exactly.
of all this should be enough to even look through it, because if you're not doing shady shit, then you have nothing to hide as an organization. Like,
Right.
all these organizations seem to be protected, but individuals' rights are not, and that's where it gets like really, really freaking shady. Um, but I don't know if you saw this recently, but there was like one of those. I can't remember if it was like a town hall or something along those lines, but some sort of state representative or government representative was pretty much caught like surfing on her computer, like shopping while people are talking about social issues and stuff that they want to see fixed. And one of the citizens ended up calling out the fact that she was on her computer scrolling through and actually looking at shopping while they're having like major discussions about stuff that's affecting people's daily lives. And he's just like, you should resign and blah blah blah. And she just ended up getting up and walking out. But I said all that to say they pulled her fucking records and showed what she was searching at which time. If you can do this so quickly
Exactly.
and look at the records that are on her computer for what she was shopping for while she wasn't paying attention, because of somebody calling out some shit, calling her out on it right now. If you have lots of people calling out this organization for it's not online shopping while people are confessing some fucked up shit that's going on in their lives. It's a database of pedophiles and mishandled circumstances that is harming people. So,
Exactly. And the
not,
cases in San Diego lay it out. There's no like, does it really exist? Is it really a thing? Pull those cases.
yeah,
And, in my attorney general report, that's what I said. Like, just go get those cases. Like, the attorney for those cases has the database. He's just not allowed to do anything with it.
right. Yeah.
Because the cases have been settled, and that's that. I
So who's
mean,
being protected? Those are the questions now. Like, who are the ones that are benefiting from this? Because if powerful people don't want certain information to come out, there's a good chance it's not going to come out until they die. And then like there's all of a sudden an investigation. It's like, oh my God, this guy had a lifetime of these fucked up situations, and everybody thought it was okay because he smiled and gave people hugs, but other people said he was shady and did this, but we just never looked into it. We don't know why. And it's like, no, lots of people are saying this stuff is happening. Lots of people are ignoring this shit.
yeah, exactly. All we could do is just keep banging, I guess. I don't.
You have to like, and that that's why I think a lot of people are exhausted.
Yeah.
A lot of people are exhausted because the system is a motherfucker.
It
And
is. Every level, and like you know, you look to all these organizations, and at every level,
every
it's a
level
motherfucker.
it
It's
is.
like, oh, where do we turn?
Yeah. And you start to, when you go down that rabbit hole
Mm-hmm.
of like, oh man, this is deep.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, what do we do? And you know, I think more and more it's understanding that we gotta get more involved. It's this. It's talking
Yeah.
about it. It's turning these taboo discussions into like a discussion that you would have over lunch. As just
Right.
like these shady, sadistic individuals should not be protected. You should not have a right of being protected against being just one of the worst human beings on the face of the earth, who is being predatory of young children. And not just that, but like brainwashing people into a state of such confusion that they lose all of their identity. It's going back to the Stanford prison experiment. Like, if you're not allowed to be an individual, you have zero power, and then you have to succumb to the power of whatever systems you're involved in.
Exactly.
And it's just, I think it comes down to just more and more transparency, and I hope that's the route we're going, because it seems like more individuals are starting to be exposed, but I'm hoping that this isn't one of those things where it's like, see, we gave you a few, but now go back to doing what you were doing.
Exactly. Yeah. Same.
Shit needs
Just have to keep shining the light in the darkness. I don't know. That's all we can do.
Yeah, oh, man, is I know we definitely hit on a decent amount of stuff on this one. Was there
Yeah.
was there anything glaring that we haven't talked about yet, or that that you'd want people to know, like somebody who's just, you know, has no idea Jehovah's Witnesses are, you know, that situation is what it is? Because coming into this, before I talked to you, my idea of Jehovah's Witnesses was those annoying motherfuckers that always knock on the door.
Yeah.
Like, that was my idea of Jehovah's Witness. A harmless group of
Mm-hmm.
people that, you know, all right, they're trying to preach what they should preach, or what they feel they should preach, but to a lot of people, they're just like, oh God, just go away.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's not that. So yeah, I guess, yeah, if there's anything else that you wanted to get into, or just what do you want people to know, take away from all this?
I feel like I covered everything that I wanted to expose. I think people like you, I think their minds are going to be blown at this little, what they thought was a harmless group, has so many dark issues. Like I said, it's one of the smaller cults. You know, they're much smaller than Mormonism. Don't make as much noise as Scientology, but wow, their problems are vast, and they affect the public. And I think that's always my biggest message, is that, you know, we can look at Scientology and be like, well, that sucks, like those people are in there brainwashed, but what can I do? Like, I'm not affected by it, right? But like with Jehovah's Witnesses, you're affected by it because they're knocking on your doors, and they're public. It's a public safety issue. So I always, when I'm talking to, you know, non-ex Jehovah's Witnesses, that's my main message, is they are a danger to the public.
Mm.
I like to expose that, because they do like to come off like they're just nice. And, you know, I was a nice Jehovah's Witness. I wasn't a pedophile, but that you can't, I mean, the organization has to be taken to task as a group.
Yes.
When it comes to these problems, like, yes, there are individuals that are just nice, like brainwashed people knocking at your door, but you don't know who's who.
Right. And that's what should be flushed out. You know,
Yeah.
it's the shitty people, and then there is like the big discussion that comes out of that. Is it so corrupt at this point to where there would be no way to flush out the individuals that need to be flushed out for change to happen, or does the whole thing have to topple?
Well, if the government gets involved and gets that database, and we can get all those cases report. I mean, one of the things is people are working on clergy penitent privilege, getting that fixed within the laws, so that the organization is not allowed to keep these things secret. Like they're using what the Catholic Church uses. Like if someone is coming to us to talk about a sin, this is clergy penitent privilege. So there's people working on those bills to get that fixed, but then that's a state by state thing too. So that's overwhelming. There's people working on statute of limitations laws. But all that has to come together so that when we get that database, we can get those people in prison.
Yeah.
You know, that's what needs to happen. That's how we flesh them out, because they have records. We can easily flesh them out if we can just get it going.
And that's the thing, is like, what's going to be the piece that sends the Jenga set over? Because the people that are doing these shady things more than likely know a lot of other people that are doing these shady things. Yep. So if you expose one person who's then going to expose other people, like, it's convenient that we can't hear testimony from Jeffrey Epstein, right?
Right.
Like you can't find out the truth from a dead person. So when you have like some of these shady motherfuckers that are attached to a lot of powerful people, the easiest way to keep those powerful people in power is to kill the person that has the truth.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, hoping that more and more people start to look at these systems that we have in place, because more and more people like yourself are actually coming out and being like, yo, no, this is wrong. This is wrong. And yeah. I think that absolutely needs to happen. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you for giving me the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, I think it's probably a good time to start wrapping this one up for today. And yeah, like I was saying before we got on this call, like if we end up doing one of these in the future, I'm all about it. I think it's important getting the truth out there, especially people that have lived this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, again, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, people, I hope you enjoyed it. We are out of here. See you.